We're looking at Mark chapter 7, and really I'd like to think about this in terms of it being a heart checkup. It's, or you could say, coming clean, thinking about what's inside you. And the question comes in the first 23 verses: what is clean and what is unclean? Of course, this is in the context of the Jewish food laws, of thinking this food is acceptable, this food is not acceptable. You can just think of like vegetarianism, it's making the same kind of choice. So they asked Jesus in verse 5, why are your disciples not religious? And then his answer is really in verse 7, because your religiousness, your service to God, are just rules taught by men. Merely, verse 8, merely the traditions of men. And so Jesus turns it around and he says, why do you not follow the commands of God? So you've got to see, do you see that? The traditions of men, the commands of God. The rules of men, the authority of God. So who are you going to call? And so the heart of the matter is a matter of the heart. It's not what's outside a man that can make him unclean by going into him. It's what's inside of him that shows that he's unclean when it comes out of this fountain called the mouth. And then that's verse 16. And so the question is, what is in the heart? And it's rather unpleasantness. Let me read it to you. It says, evil thoughts, sexual immorality, you know it's true, theft, murder, adultery, greed, malice, deceit, lewdness, envy, slander, arrogance, folly. Are you depressed already? He's saying that's what's inside you. That's what comes out when you speak. When you speak like this. And so all this fancy pants nonsense about what you should eat or how you should act, that's just the outside appearance. What's inside is what's significant. In verse 19, this is an amazing little statement. It says that by this, Jesus announced all foods clean. Now, it's such a tiny statement, you might miss it, especially if you're not from a Jewish culture or Jewish background. And it's almost like he's declaring the end of Judaism. It could be interpreted because it was so rigorously important. It was so crucial that these food laws were kept. They had dominated the precise identity of Judaism for generations. And then by this little flip offhand remark, by this, Jesus declared all foods clean. It looks like it's a revolution. But it's not. It's not the end of Judaism. It's the beginning of a Judaism without walls. That's an interesting phrase to conjure with. And so just to prove that, in verse 24 to 30 in chapter 7, you've got the story of the unclean foreigner. What's that person's place in this new regime, this new Judaism without walls? And then the second story in verse 31 to 37 is the story of a deaf mute. And then this concept, who is in my family? Who is available to receive the blessings of being in my family? And again, do you remember, who is my family? Who's my family members? Those who follow the will of God. So it's nothing to do with this outside stuff. It's this inward connection. Okay? You remember that question when Jesus redefined family. So the foreigner seeks a miracle, and he outlines his primary objective is to Israel and not to outsiders, and she claims a lowly place in it. Even the dogs eat the crumbs that drop from the table. And he acknowledges her wit, her persistence, her faith, her vision of a God that is bigger, that cannot be contained in walls. And he heals a deaf foreigner, verses 31 to 37. You remember the disabled are not permitted in the presence of God, and neither were foreigners. So you heal a disabled foreigner, and two strikes, you're going outside the limits. Okay? What kind of Messiah is Jesus? What kind of God do we serve? Every time you think that he can be contained within walls, contained within religion, How about trying this phrase? Okay, how about the phrase, Jesus wasn't a Christian? What does that phrase suggest? Maybe it sounds nonsense to you, but he can't be contained within Christianity, ever so much as he can't be contained within Judaism, because he is not the purveyor of a new religion. As if you're in a supermarket and picking one bit or that bit. He is bigger. If he is who he says he is much bigger than any of our conceptualization about him. And every time you put a rule, every time you put a law, he stretches beyond it. And he bids us come with it. And the people who will most react against that are those who are engaged in defending the rights of their own religion. Do you want to be one of those? It's really strange and sad, isn't it, how often we do. God bless you today.